Greetings, dear audience, cultured and knowledgeable. Welcome to another episode of this space where we dedicate ourselves to dissecting the scraps thrown at us from the Olympus of Mexican politics. Today, I bring you a tasting menu of legislative cynicism that will turn your stomach. Because today we're going to talk about how democracy became the favorite toy of those who swore they were no longer the same. You already know that here in Mexico, logic is optional and cynicism is our daily bread. We're also going to break down how Republican austerity became internationalist with someone else's wallet, of course. In this madhouse, reality always surpasses fiction, and common sense is an endangered species, almost as much as honesty. At the National Palace, we'll see how the current administration has become the Caribbean's favorite department of collections and extortion. Let's get to it. First, let's take a look at the infamous Plan B. How is that blunder going? Well, it turns out that in the sacred and spotless Senate committees, those national heroes who get paid like kings to sleep like dormice, they just approved, with 24 votes in favor and 11 against from an opposition that shouts but doesn't bite, the very famous Electoral Plan B. The master plan so that the recall of our dear President Claudia Sheinbaum coincides, what a coincidence, with the midterm elections of 2027. That's what the defenders of this legislative gem say. That it's for austerity, of course, because we all know the current government suffers a lot every time it spends a single peso from the treasury. They argue that putting out 2 ballot boxes on the same day is cheaper than putting one out today and another tomorrow. What they forget to mention is a small detail, a trifle, is that having the face, the name, and the spirit of Mrs. Claw on the 2027 ballot is the most powerful boost for their candidates for deputies and governors. It's basic electoral engineering, my kids. If the lady is on the ballot, the structure moves, and if the structure moves, the votes fall like dominoes. It's like offering a 2-for-1 deal in a store that's already charging you double. But here's the twist in this mess. Pete's divorce. Is it about dignity or just a tantrum? What really spiced things up this morning was Fucci from the Labor Party's sour face. Pete, yes, the same ones who have been Morena's doormat for years, suddenly feel offended. They distance themselves from the report, citing inconsistencies. Translation for normal people. Pete knows that if the election becomes polarized between Claudia and what's left of the opposition, they as satellites become irrelevant. They're sensing that the budget for their share of power is getting tighter, and they've decided to bare their teeth to see if they can get a bigger slice of the pie. Or maybe, just maybe, is it survival instinct? It tells them that this reform is another nail in the coffin of the party system as we know it. If we take a look at the cesspool we call social media, things are really heating up. The coffee shop analysts and the bots paid by both sides are having a field day. Some say it's a soft coup, that they want to crush the opposition in 2027, and that the recall should be a citizen's punishment, not a campaign rally paid for by us. Others, the supporters, say it's an honor to be with the best, that the opposition is afraid because they know the people will ratify Claudia. Saving money is a priority, even if it hurts the conservatives. This one lacks a bit of reading comprehension about what equity in the race really means. But, well, his enthusiasm doesn't go away. In fact, the website Monitor Legislativo published a column suggesting that this is the beginning of the perpetual campaign, where there's no more governing, people compete for applause each election Sunday. Imagine the scene, 2027. You arrive at the polling station, tired of inflation, which already has us eating air, of insecurity, and of potholes. They give you your ballot for congressman, and right next to it, a ballot that asks if you want Claudia Sheinbaum to stay. It's the oldest magic trick in the world, distracting your attention with the right hand while the left hand takes your wallet. They want us to believe that they care about whether the citizen wants Claudia to stay or leave, when we all know she's going to stay, because she has the machinery of the state on her side. The progress of the so-called Plan B of the electoral reform in the Senate left more than just an approved report. It revealed a division within the alliances. Morena and the Green Party managed to move the project forward in committees, but they did so without a key ally, the Labor Party, which decided to be absent. In politics, absences also count as votes, and in this case, they matter, because even though the ruling party insists on projecting unity, as Ignacio Mier did by sharing a photo with legislators from the bloc, the bill advanced with just the minimum needed, at a stage where only a simple majority was required. Ricardo Monreal is already hinting that Plan B could reach San Lázaro without the article that proposes the recall of mandate. Well, that's exactly the issue and the breaking point with the PT allies, which is why the vote could fail because of that. The 2027 electoral process will be unprecedented. In a single day, federal local judicial elections and the recall of mandate will coincide, increasing operational complexity. And that's how it is. The so-called Plan B is still pending. It's clear that the Green Party has already been pressured, but we still need to see the size of the files they have on the PT members to get the same result. How will all this end? We'll have to wait and see. Now let's move on to today's main topic, the Isla del Sol project. Caribbean solidarity or revolutionary kickback? It sounds like a joke, but in this surreal Mexico of the fourth transformation, jokes become circular, official. Meanwhile, dear taxpayer, you're struggling with the Servicio de Administración Tributaria Portal, which works better as an enforcement arm than as an accounting platform. The top leaders of the Guinda movement have decided that the money from Mexican business people has a much nobler purpose than creating jobs or local infrastructure. Meanwhile, you, dear taxpayer, are struggling with the Servicio de Administración Tributaria Portal, which works better as an enforcement arm than as an accounting platform. The top leaders of the Guinda movement have decided that the money from Mexican business people has a much nobler purpose than generating jobs or local infrastructure. Cuba. Yes, you heard right, this is not a bad joke. It's the Isla del Sol project, a name that sounds more like an all-inclusive travel agency package to Varadero than a foreign policy initiative. But here, the only thing that's included is the suggestion to stop by the cash register. But who are the three musketeers of the forced collection? At the center of this plot, which could very well be a Luis Estrada movie, three names appear that echo through the halls of power like the sound of a lottery drawing. The chief ideologue, the man who sees poetry where others see demagogy, and who is said to be the one who writes the books for the Macaspano donkey. Apparently, his pen now not only writes manifestos, but also letters of economic invitation. Pablo Daniel Tade, the young face of Sonoran meritocracy, note the sarcasm. The director of Litio MX seems to have free time to worry.
Suministro eléctrico, pero de La Habana.
And Jonathan Garduño, the silent operator, the man of the signatures that seal the commitments. These individuals would have signed a letter addressed to the business sector, the same ones they call a minority, greedy, from Monday to Friday, to ask them for donations because nothing says national sovereignty like asking local capitalists to finance the resistance of a regime that has been a dictatorship for 6 decades. The question is, voluntary donation or institutional protection money? The irony is so thick you could cut it with a machete. According to gossip and unforgiving social media, the tone of the letter is so polite it makes your hair stand on end. It's the kind of invitation you get that makes you think, if I don't cooperate, tomorrow I'll get audited or they'll just cancel my contract. In opinion forums and in the underworld of X, formerly Twitter, the debate is heating up. It's the Bolivarian version of the telethon, minus the comedy sketches, except for the unintentional humor in the morning press conferences. That's enough, commented a user who was more right than a saint. Others point out the obvious. Why should Mexican businessmen subsidize Cuba? If the fourth transformation wants to help, why not use the consistently underspent ministry budgets? No, it's much better to pass the hat to the private sector, all while they're being called corrupt from the presidential pulpit. It's the silence of the innocent and the noise of social media. That's the most fascinating thing about this project. Isla del Sol is the name, Isla del Sol. It sounds like a tax haven, which would be the height of cynicism. Meanwhile, Mexico's healthcare system is said to be like Denmark's, but the focus appears to be on sending financial aid to the island. The pressure isn't subtle. Business owners who already have enough to deal with insecurity and the lack of rule of law. With ideological extortion, this is nothing more than the extortion of well-being. Cuba, our forced charity. While you, humble mortal, are fighting with the tax office because you forgot to declare a caramel lollipop, in the upper echelons of Mexican humanism they're playing Robin Hood. But the other way around, they take from the people who don't have medicine to give it to a dictatorship that has spent 6 decades perfecting the art of misery. That island of the sun, that so-called paradise, is a prison where time stopped in 1959. The bills keep coming, and we are the ones who pay them. Our brand new administration has decided that it's not enough to export speeches about sovereignty that nobody believes. Now we also export the fruits of Mexicans' hard work to keep afloat a regime that's falling apart. It's the business of solidarity with other people's money. The move is masterful, worthy of a cartoon villain from the 1970s. Under the guise of technical cooperation and humanitarian aid, resources are being funneled that conveniently end up feeding the island's control machinery. Cuban doctors, of course, bring them all in, even if we don't really know whether they're actually doctors or just experts at taking ideological attendance. The key is the check goes from the Mexican treasury directly to the Havana leadership, never passing through the workers' hands in case they think about eating 3 times a day. It's outright extortion, but it's not that Cuba is extorting Mexico. It's that the Fourth Transformation is extorting its own people to pay its share of revolutionary purity. Is it an ideological survival strategy? The current administration needs the Cuban experiment to keep breathing, even if it's on a Mexican artificial ventilator, so they can say the system works. It's the cost of keeping alive the flame of a utopia that only exists in the minds of those who have caviar for breakfast while reading the Communist Manifesto. It is ultimately hypocrisy as a state policy. The most fascinating part of this theater is its cynicism. They tell us that we are a sovereign country that doesn't meddle in other people's affairs, unless, of course, the affair is about saving the skin of a friendly dictatorship. In that case, the Estrada doctrine gets thrown into the junk drawer and they pretend to be outraged. Discussing democracy here while funding dictatorship there is the extortion of the Fourth Transformation. They use the taxes from the aspirational and selfish middle class to subsidize the failure of a model they themselves dream of implementing. Here, but with better banquets and more expensive uniforms, there you have it, dear audience, cultured and knowledgeable. Another stripe for the tiger. They want to sell us efficiency when what we really need is something else. But don't worry, keep watching your shows and paying your taxes, because in the Senate they've already decided for you how things will play out in 2027. And on the other hand, these jerks make it clear to us once again that socialism is great with other people's money. The move is masterful in its shamelessness. They use big names from within the movement to give the fundraising an official veneer, but they keep it just low profile enough so they can say it was a good-willed citizen initiative. In the Isla del Sol project, the sun shines for a few and the shadow of extortion covers the usual ones. At the end of the day, what we see is nothing more than a reflection of what happens when ideology eats up the budget. It's not help, it's a lead lifeline paid by you, by me, and by the future of a country that's wasting away trying to light up the neighbor's house who never pays the rent. That's my take. Signing off. But not before reminding you that in this country, politics isn't understood, it's endured. So now you know, the next time you see a problem in the healthcare system or a pothole that looks like a lunar crater, don't get mad. Remember that money is probably being used so some bureaucrat in Havana can keep talking about the glories of Fidel, Che, and the revolution, while enjoying the air conditioning paid for with your hard-earned money. I'm leaving before they ask me for a donation too for using too many adjectives. Be mischievous, take care of yourselves, and stop believing that well-being falls from the sky. Because here, only taxes and letters to support the Cuban dictatorship fall from the sky. But what do you think? I'll read your comments. See you on Friday. Remember that you can make your donations via PayPal. You can find the information in the comment box. Thanks to you, this channel stays active. It's very important to subscribe, like, and press the bell to receive notifications every time there's something new.
Gracias.